Tvevaham Jatunasam, Natwam Neme Janadipa, Nachaivana Bhavishyama, Sarve Vayamata Param. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Omajana Tramanandasya, Janajana Salakaya, Chakshun Militanyena, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So, your question is very appropriate because we can see that in the very beginning of an explanation of Bhagavad-Gita, the school of Bhakti, because our author is Bhaktivedanta Swami, is establishing very strongly the individuality of the soul as presented by Krishna in Bhagavad-Gita to Arjuna. The Mayavad philosophy is that philosophy which embraces the fact that, yes, we are all spiritual energy, but in the ultimate issue, when all is said and done, and when we are liberated from the inebrities of material existence, we become part of the great spirit whole, and in doing so, the individual person which we experience as our being, our Atma, within this world, ceases to exist. Now, there are many schools of Vedanta. There's one school of Vedanta, but there's many viewpoints. There's many ways of looking at the absolute truth. And basically that's explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti sabhyate. There's basically 3 levels of realization of our true spiritual nature. Which is separate from our existence within the material world, and are being covered by the modes of material nature and being conditioned by karma in so many different varieties of bodies within the material world. So, Brahmeti is that we are all in the ultimate issue, Brahman. We are all spirit soul. Now, above that understanding of just being spirit soul, there is an understanding of Paramatma, that aside from our individual being and the fact that every living entity, from the smallest microbe up to the creator of the material universe, a Lord Brahma, that all those varieties of living entities, the aquatics, the birds, the beasts, the human beings, and the demigods who basically control this material universe, just as within a government there's an administration to control the citizens in the society. So all of those living entities are spirit soul, but apart from them, that as they go through their various lives within the material universe, various changes of body, various actions and reactions of karma, activities within the material nature, there is an assistant who is a plenary portion of that higher being, who is an individual, as Krishna is stating here. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future will we not exist as individual people. So, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Paramatma. Paramatma, I realize that aside from me, there's a higher sense, a higher being who's basically providing everything. It's not hard to see. We don't make the sun. We don't make the sunlight. We don't make the moonlight. We don't make the vegetables. We didn't make the body. It doesn't matter how much the material scientists go into their laboratory and mix up all the elements that they can. They've yet to make a body. They can be so good, but they can't do that. They can't make a body that can make another body. They can clone, but can they make the actual essence of a being without making their replication? No. So, not yet. That's exactly what they'll say. Not yet. Someday we'll make what? So, Brahmeti, the fact that everything in the ultimate issue, as far as our true being, is spiritual. Paramatmeti, there is an individual person who is a manifestation of the Lord Himself, who is residing with us at every step along the way and providing all the ingredients that make up our existence.
One or one for each individual?
Well, there's one.
Okay.
There's
I have my own personal one.
You do have your own personal one. It is a fact. Because the amazing thing about Super Soul, or the Paramatma, is He is personally there with you. And He's personally with all of us individually. He resides. It's compared to two birds sitting on the branch of a tree. One bird is giving good instruction to the other bird. The other bird is simply eating the fruits of the tree. We, unfortunately, are the fruit-eating bird. And the fruits can either be nectarine or they can be bitter based on how we engage in activities within the material world.
Do you believe that we are part of God? That we are God?
We are God, and we are part of God.
Yes. Okay.
Then we come to the distinction between your question, what is the Mayavadi, and what is the school of Bhakti? Okay, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan Ichi Sabhyate. The Vedic aphorism says those three aspects of the absolute truth are there. The impersonal aspect, just as we look at the sun, we feel the heat of the sun and we see the light of the sun. That would be the energy of the spirit. Okay? Then Paramatma is that individual part of the spirit which resides in each of us. And Bhagavan. There is a supreme entity who is an individual person from whom all this spiritual energy emanates. And from whom all the material energy emanates. And just as we are individual persons, He is also an individual person. We have our character. He has His spiritual character. We also have a spiritual character. It's now covered up by the modes of material nature, which is also His energy, but His separated external energy. So there's three divisions. When we look at Vedic knowledge, Vedic information, it's explained that there are basically three divisions of that transcendental personality, who can be known by so many names, but Krishna means all attractive, so that kind of sums it up. So He has His own internal spiritual potency, Himself. He has His marginal potency, which is also purely spiritual, and He has His external potency, which are what we experience as earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, and intelligence, and false ego. That's His external material energy. We're in between His pure spiritual being and the material energy. We're considered in the marginal position. We're marginal energy. But we're of His same nature. So, one of the key understandings of the school of Bhakti is that understanding of Achinta Veda Veda Tattva. And this was fully explained by Lord Chaitanya, who is also an incarnation of Krishna. Achinta Beta Beta Tatma means simultaneously one and different. That the Lord is so unlimitedly powerful that He can reside in His own personal spiritual abode and simultaneously from Him all marginal, ourselves, living entities are there, and all the material energy is emanating from Him. Achinta Beta Beta Tattva. So we are simultaneously part and parcel of that supreme individual personality, and we're also separated. We have our own individuality, just as He has individuality. So that supreme fountainhead of all spiritual energy, no matter what you want to call it, He is a person. So Bhagavad-Gita is going to make the point very clear. As we go on, there's going to be verse after verse. And at the very end, at the conclusion of Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, do you understand what is spiritual and what is material and what makes up your illusion in material existence?
Arjuna knows that he's a devotee of Krishna?
Does Arjuna know?
Yes.
Oh, yes. He knows his position, but he becomes bewildered by Krishna's external energy. And there's a difference. The supreme fountainhead, the supreme personality Krishna, or whatever name you want to call that supreme being, He is unlimitedly powerful and beautiful and renounced. And we also have those characteristics, those qualities. But His are to an infinite degree, and ours are infinitesimal. And because we are such an infinitesimal part of His spiritual energy, we can fall under the sway of His external potency. The whole teaching of Bhagavad-Gita is to say, get out of the miseries of material existence and return to your true spiritual nature. And there's a discipline that will allow us to do that. That's the discipline of yoga. And yoga has so many schools. But in the ultimate issue, yoga is for the purification of the mind and body, and ultimately ends with a complete purification of our spiritual being. Now, we're already spirit, so how can you purify it? We're already part and parcel of God, so there's really no purification to go on. But there is the elimination of the illusion that we are in this world to enjoy anything and everything. So basically, Arjuna is here at the beginning of the battle and saying, wait, here's my teacher, here's my cousin, here's my brother, and you want me to fight and kill them. You know, because they are rogues and rascals and they've usurped the kingdom and they're not putting forth a society management structure that will lead everyone to spiritual life. So this is basically what the whole battle of Kurukshetra is about. Is people that are adverse to the spiritual upliftment of humanity at large have usurped the kingdom. So Krishna is coming down, and he says this in Bhagavad Gita, Yada yadahi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Wherever and whenever there's a decline of religious practice, at that time I descend myself in order to reestablish the principles of religion and eliminate the suffering of mankind.
Well, he must be down here now.
He is. He actually is. And that's also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Is the nature of Krishna's advent in Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga, as we've discussed, is a very fallen age for mankind. Kalir dose nite, what is it? Kalir dose nite rajan asti hyeka mahan guna kirtanan eva krishnasya mukta sangha param gajet. My dear king, although this age of mankind, Kali Yuga, is full of all kinds of faults, we don't have much difficulty seeing that no matter where we look, there is still one amazingly good quality. Mahans. Great. Like we say Mahatma, means a very great person. So Mahan Guna, quality. Just like we have qualities in material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. So that means Guna means quality. Mahan Guna, great quality. So even though Kali Yuga is such a fallen age, there's one great quality. Kirtanad eva Krishnasya. Simply by performing Hare Krishna Kirtan, or any Kirtan, any way of glorifying Krishna or the Lord's transcendental name, Mukta Sangha Param Vrajet. One can attain complete liberation. Now, generally that's such an easy path to spiritual enlightenment. It's not available to mankind. Except in Kali Yuga, this fallen age. Generally, if we were to live in the other ages, just as there's seasons of the year, there's ages of mankind, such a yuga, you live for, let's see, this is 100,000 years in one body. Now, if you have 100,000 years to practice and perfect your Ashtanga Yoga practice, you can attain ultimate purification simply by performing those practices. Kind of hard to do that in Kali Yuga, where you're lucky if you live 100 years. But if you have 100,000 years in one body, you can perfect your breathing. You can easily rise, all of your energy through the various chakras, and you can attain, first of all, Brahman, Varmeti, where you actually can. Brahman realization is basically when there's no more miseries imposed upon you from the external material energy. And then the perfect yogi who's no longer affected by, what do we want to say, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. In other words, he's in control of things. Because the perfect yogi, he has the mystic cities of his true spiritual nature. So, with those cities, he's no longer affected by hunger, thirst. Perfect yogis, they don't even... If you go to Kumbh Mela in India, it says that a lot of the young men you meet there, coming down from the Himalayas, are hundreds of years old. They're such perfect yogis. But that's very rare. Common man can't obtain those mystic perfections in this society. So, and of course, after the perfect yogi has control and has basically understood he's nothing, he is part of the spiritual energy, then his next meditation is on Paramatma within the heart. To such an extent that he can realize that not only am I here in this body, but there's also a representation of that Supreme Person who's there with me and providing everything that I need. Ultimately culminating in Bhagavan realization, or realization of that personality of Godhead. Now that realization entails a grasp and a full understanding of what's called our true relationship with that individual. Now, right now, within the material world, that relationship is covered over. But we have a loving relationship with God. In this world, we can see a perverted reflection of love. You have the love of a mother for its child. You have the love of a close friend. And you ultimately have conjugal love with a lover. So this different love that we see within the material world, that exists in our true spiritual nature. Because it's understood that this material world is simply a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So that spiritual love, we have a personal relationship with God in one of 5 primary loving relationships. We either have one of adoration, which is Santa Ras, means we adore God. And that's enough to completely satisfy us. Higher than that, there is the love of servitorship. That not only do I adore the Lord for all of His energy and all that He is and all that He's given to me, that I actually have a sentiment that I need to serve Him. And in that serving, there's a more of a taste of our spiritual nature, of spiritual rasa. Above that, there's friendship. Imagine actually being so close to God that you go beyond the awe and veneration. You go beyond the servitorship, and you're actually a friend. Now, the relationships of friend, of parent, and of conjugal lover entail that one advances so much spiritually that the awe and reverence must fall away in order for someone to completely taste those mellows of transcendental love. So, those are the mellows that are available through the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who is a manifestation of Krishna in Kali Yuga, who inaugurated this simple method of Harinam, Harinam, of chanting the holy name of the Lord and becoming completely purified. So, he introduced a complete understanding of the fact that basically our Siddha Pranali, our personal spiritual nature, because that thing which is us that can never be taken away from us, that pure spiritual nature is understood in the most intimate degrees when we look at Krishna's pastimes 5,000 years ago in Vraja, Vrindavan, or when Krishna descends to the earth, he brings his whole program with him. It's like a traveling road show. And when he descends on earth, he displays all of his spiritual loving relationships with his most intimate eternal devotees. And in displaying those, all of mankind is uplifted spiritually. And by our simply observing those, hearing about those, remembering those, we're completely purified of all the impurities of material existence. That's what's available. That's the distinction that is available to us in Kali Yuga that's not available in other ages of mankind. So, great stress is put in this purport by Bhakti-Vedanta, Bhakti meaning the school of love and devotion. Great stress is being made as to the distinction between the school of Bhakti and the school of Mayavadi. When we say Mayavadi, the Mayavadi philosophy, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. Neti, neti, neti. God is not this, He's not that, He's not that. In the ultimate issue, what is God? We're all God. It's all one, and when you get out of this covering of your material body, you're going to merge into the all spiritual potency. But if you really truly look at our nature, you'll see that within this material world, although we may be although we do want to relieve ourselves of the anxieties and the miseries of material existence, birth, death, old age, and disease, the body's created by the mind and by ourself. The body's created, the misery's created by other living entities. And the misery's created by higher authorities we have no control of. Although we do want to rid ourselves of those because they're foreign to our spiritual nature. They're not us at all. Although we want those to go away, still, does that mean that we go away with them? That we become one of the whole, complete spirit whole, and there's nothing left of us? That's foreign to our nature. We've always been individuals, and will always continue to be individuals. For we're talking about a dialogue here between an incarnation of the Lord Himself, Krishna, and His most dear friend, Arjuna. They have a loving relationship. Arjuna becomes bewildered intentionally. He's put into bewilderment by the Lord so He can give instruction to him for our benefit. And the very beginning, the first instruction, the first words out of Krishna's mouth. Natvevaham chatuna sam natvam name janati pa. Never was there a time when you did not exist, nor I, nor all these kings. Nor in the future are you going to cease to exist. And neither am I.
So what you're saying is that our individual spirit exists. That's what you're saying.
Yes. And Krishna, a distinct living entity, that supreme personality of Godhead, is also in the ultimate issue not an amalgamation of all the individual parts and parcels of spirit that we see within the material world in so many varieties of different bodies, but He is also distinct as an individual Himself. And that's where the unique understanding of Achinta Veda Veda Tattva has to be comprehended. Simultaneously one and different. That individual person who made everything that we see and experience, and who also we are a part and parcel of, is also separate from us in His own supreme individuality. That's the school of bhakti.
So like if there were no spirit souls, let's just say there were no spirit souls, God would still exist as a person, as an individual, even if there was no spirit souls.
Well, that's not possible.
I know it's not possible, but
well,
it
then
was possible.
We don't, Krishna says first thing Bhagavad-Gita, Natvevaham. Never is there a time when that in your individuality did not exist.
But if He's not made up of all the spirit souls, if there weren't spirit souls, though, He would still exist.
Achinta Veda Veda Tattva. You can't say that Krishna, independent of all His parts and parcels, is not the supreme absolute truth. He's made that very clear even in the very preliminary stages of Bhagavad-Gita. So to say if there wasn't it's not a valid point of discussion, because it doesn't exist in reality. You can say what if, but in reality when we talk about Vedic truth, Veda means knowledge, Vedanta means the end of knowledge, Anta, Antya-lila. Okay? Vedanta, the end of all knowledge, begins at Bhagavad-Gita, where Krishna says, I'm eternal, you're eternal, we've always been, I've always been, and we will always be. But yes, if you wanted to say if there wasn't His parts and parcels, would He still be there? Yes, but it's not like that.
What would the point be for Him to be there then?
Well, He does. Yes. It's all one.
Interconnected.
Yes. So that's the basic. And you will notice that there will always be there is always these two schools of thought when we look at Vedic knowledge. The impersonalist and the personalist. Now, as you study more and more the Vedas, and you go through the various Vedas, we'll come basically to the cream of the Vedanta Sutra. The cream of Vedanta Sutra is Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is that cream of the Vedanta Sutra which explains all of the sutras of the Vedas in perfection. It's called the Mahapurana. So Srimad Bhagavatam, the conclusion of Bhagavatam as we go through it, all the cantos of Bhagavatam, ultimately ends in those pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, where those rasas of loving exchange with the Lord Himself are experienced by perfected living entities. The goal of Bhakti Yoga is for us to again enter into that relationship which somehow or other we have set aside in order to enjoy independently of Krishna. So, our true position is one of a wealthy son or daughter who's basically gone away from the family to experience things on their own. The father is still there, the mother is still there with full love and attention. And basically, behind the scenes, they're looking out and arranging things for the well-being of their child. Unbeknownst to him, even he thinks he's run off and he's on his own and he's doing his own thing. You know, a wealthy parent would certainly continue to care for their child unbeknownst to the child. So similarly, Krishna, God, is looking out for us at every step along the way. Constantly, come on back. Why not move back into the palace? Why not take facility of all the superior spiritual opulences which are available to you, which are your birthright? Instead, we say, well, you know, I'm happy here. Everything's fine. I'm the king of my own domain. And unfortunately, that's okay. Krishna says, fine, here's your playground. But your playground is not reality. Because it's not reality, and because you're thinking that you are this body, and you are these senses, and you are this mind, and you are all that you possess, and you're all your family members, that is who you are. Since you're thinking like that, because it's not reality, the material world is so constructed that you're never going to be happy. And that's not really to your detriment. It's simply you are so much more than trying to enjoy in a material body with material senses. You're spiritual. You are a spiritual entity, and you're meant to enjoy on the spiritual platform. Does that kind of answer your question?
I know, I totally believe that. I totally believe all that.
Well, then you're self-realized.
I mean, but it's hard to always remind myself of it, but I believe it.
So that's what the whole program of Bhagavad-Gita and this chanting is about, so that we don't forget. So as we engage, as soon as we make a firm determination to follow our faith, because anybody that hears Bhagavad-Gita is easily convinced that this is your true nature. You are spirit soul. And as you say, it's hard to remember it. Why is it hard? Well, I got to pay the mortgage, I got to pay the rent, I got to take care of the kids, I got to get the education, I have to do so many things that every minute I got so many things dragging me.
The only thing that I have trouble with is that thing about you're always the same. You know, I don't know if I have that.
No, you're always the same in that you're a spirit soul.
In each life. Yeah, I believe that your spirit goes on in each life. I do believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's still that part of me that goes, yeah, but maybe it's not. I mean, it's because you really don't know.
Well, it's because of our conditioned nature. Our conditioned nature is there And the one thing that happens is because we're infinitesimal, Krishna is infinitely spiritual and we're infinitesimal part and parcel, we fall under the sway of his external energy, and when we go from this body to that body, we forget. What was I? Was I a king in my last life? Was I Joan of Arc? Was I Beethoven? Or was I just some bum in the streets of London? Who knows?
Do you think that some people remember, some people have a feeling that...
First of all, there are people that have feelings.
Or they say, I'm an old soul.
Well, we're all old souls.
But to me, it's like, I am. I don't remember. I don't feel that.
Some people may. Some people may be putting themselves into their own illusion to think I was this or that.
Okay.
As one becomes purified, everything does become revealed. The perfect yogi knows both his past and his future lives. But you have to understand, as we go on in the understanding of Bhagavad-Gita and the whole nature of the material world, first of all, we're in one universe. Now imagine a bucket. And in that bucket you have mustard seeds. How many would be in a bucket? Could you count them? Okay. That's just to give us some understanding. That's explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the material universes, which are coming out from Krishna's energy, from the Lord's energy, the material universes are so diverse that they would be like a bucket full of mustard seeds. That's that many universes. Within each universe, there are so many individual planets, no man can count them all. Look at the stars in the sky. How many planets are in one universe? There's a bucket full of mustard seeds which might represent all the universes. Those material universes are 1/4 of the complete spiritual potency of Krishna. 3/4 of his energy never falls under the sway of material. That's the spiritual energy. That's Vaikuntha Loka. Vaikuntha, free of anxiety. We're not in Vaikuntha. We're in the other place, full of anxiety.
Sometimes we're free.
Sometimes you're free, yes. For how long?
Short spells.
Huh?
Short spells that get longer as time goes on.
So, ultimately, we want to come to that spiritual platform that you're taking more than the rest of us, where there's no anxiety ever. And that's not available within the material world.
It can't be never, otherwise, you have to have good and bad, or you don't know what's good.
Our true nature, that in the material world, that's a fact.
Because it's a duality. In the material world, relative truth, what we know as truth, it's all relative and it's based on duality. But in the spiritual realm, there's absolute truth. And absolute truth is truth. It's not based on anything else.
And the one thing that's distinguishing about the spiritual energy, which those people that have made it tell us, is it's not that, they're just in bliss. They're in ever increasing transcendental bliss as their loving relationships become more and more enhanced. So even though they're fully satisfied and living in loving relationships with one another and with the Supreme Lord, those relationships are becoming more and more and more relishable. Unlimitedly.
We'll never get there.
No.
Could we be spiritual and not belonging to a special religion? Because you refer to Krishna.
Religion, when we look at religion, we're talking Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is descending knowledge from the transcendental platform. Basically, when we look at religion is also coming from Krishna, but it's coming according to time and circumstance. Time and circumstance in society of man is created by the situations of mankind through the different ages. Those religious principles that are put forth by so many saints and empowered individuals who are empowered by God, like Jesus or Mohammed or so many, those empowered individuals are there to give instruction according to time, place, and circumstance. Okay? Just like you cannot teach, calculus to a second grader. They're not developed enough. So we begin, you notice that the saints in this, let's start with nonviolence. Can you please not kill animals? Can you please not kill each other? Can you please not do this? So basically, gradually, the modes of material nature of mankind has to be raised gradually. From the mode of ignorance, to the mode of passion, to the mode of goodness. Then we talk about transcendental life. That's Suddha-sattva, purified goodness. Where there's no influence of, I don't want to be good. I just want to be a lover of God. That's above the modes of material nature. But first we have to gradually... Right.
Krishna to the Hinduism or the Buddhism.
That's just to look at it from a material viewpoint. Pure religion means purely loving the Supreme Lord unlimitedly. That's pure religion.
And whatever religion you use to get to that platform, it doesn't matter.
No, it does not matter. Krishna consciousness is not a sectarian thing, or bhakti yoga, or Vedanta, Vedanta, Vedic knowledge. It's not a sectarian thing. It's meant for all mankind. But not all mankind's ready for Vedanta. People have a hard enough... Huh?
It's more philosophy,
Well, it's absolute truth. If we're looking at philosophy, there's philosophy that's descending from the spiritual realm. That's Vedic knowledge. That's descending down through purified, self-realized spiritual masters. They've all actually purified themselves completely, and they're completely in love with God. So when they're on that platform of self-realization, then they can teach us purely. They're no longer under the influence of the external energy. There's a simple verse that Rupa Goswami, one of the great followers of Lord Chaitanya, put forward regarding who is a perfect spiritual master. Vacho vegam anasakrodo vegam, jiva vegam udara pasta vegam, etan vegam yo visaheta dira, sarvam apimam pritivin sasishyat. One who can control the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, the belly, and the genital, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. What's that mean? Not influenced by the material energy. Someone who is so controlled that they control the urge to speak, control the mind. How hard is that? The actions of anger. Who doesn't get upset and angry about stuff? Why isn't this going my way? And the urges of the tongue, the belly, and the genital. All in a straight line. Those three things. Those are the main urges.
Sorry, that tongue guy is mighty common.
So, that individual, that perfect yogi that can control those things, he can make disciples all over the world. And why? Because he can elevate them. I cannot give you something I do not have. A bona fide spiritual master cannot give you something that he does not possess. So,
because they say, I think in the beginning, that you should, if you want to follow the path, you should still refer to someone with the knowledge. So, but who would you choose?
Someone that knows more than you. There's so many divisions of spiritual master, and that we can get into those. But, if someone can perfectly answer your inquiries regarding the spiritual life and material life and everything, then you should take instruction from that individual. And
sometimes the teachers change as you change.
Yes. But we should accept that individual that's going to help us along our spiritual path. You know, do we see what you look at the majority of people, in this society, in the Western world, and who are they accepting as their spiritual master? Lord Jesus Christ. But are they a good disciple? Lord Jesus gives so many instructions, and all they want to do is give him their sins. You know, what about the love thy brother? What about all those other things? What about the nonviolence?
It sure wasn't any of that.
No, but I'll give you my sins. So you take my sins and you crawl up on the cross and you suffer for me, and I don't have to be a good person. What kind of a loving relationship is that? So, and what you also see that class of man, they're not convinced by true spiritual faith and conviction. They're convinced by a miracle. Well, all the miracles of the mystic yogi you can see are performed by the scientists in the world. You know, what's the big deal? They're simply material characteristics. You know, if I can pick up a lump of iron and turn it into gold, does that make me a great person? No, it means I have some material facility. It's just a trick. It doesn't truly mean spiritual life. That's why Rupa Goswami says, you want a spiritual master? Make sure he can control his senses and his mind and his anger. That he's not swayed by the tongue dragging him here and the genital dragging him there. You know, that person can give you some spiritual knowledge.